I have been casting way too much Zerg as of late. You know what? It's time for some Protoss versus Terran. Spotting right here in the bottom left, playing in blue. A man I've been getting a lot of questions about because I apparently have not covered him in quite a few weeks at this point. We're looking inside of the main base of MaxPax. Now, quite a few MaxPax fans have reached out and asked, hey, Lowko, is he still playing? He's certainly still playing, but for some reason, I guess I just haven't, covered as many of his matches. His opponent, likewise, also still playing. Don't worry about it. Of course, this Terran player plays against, well, practically everybody in every weekly cup. We're looking inside of the main of ByuN. So, a previous world champion of StarCraft 2 going up against one of the world's very best Protoss players. Now, it is true that MaxPax has been participating in, I guess, slightly fewer tournaments than he used to. So, for most of 2025, for example, I think he played in practically everything. And then in 2026, he also has been participating in a lot of stuff, but not quite as many tournaments, especially 5.0.16. I think it's been quite difficult for him and a lot of other Protoss players so far. So maybe he's just not really too practiced on it just yet, or maybe he's just not enjoying it as much. But yeah, he's certainly still playing, and it's going to be nice to get an update as to where Max is currently at. Now, because I'm a professional, I apparently forgot turning on my health bars, but don't worry. Nobody noticed that I went into the settings and turned it on. I actually turned them off. The reason I sometimes forget is because I turn them off whenever I make a thumbnail for a YouTube video. So I always try to get pretty pictures, and the way I do it is I go into the replays and then I turn off the health bars. And I try to create nice little... You can turn the camera around, right? You can get right nice little angles for different units. The most recent one I took actually was this morning of a Rainer throwing around a bunch of infested Terrans in the patches mod. That was very interesting. Easiest clickbait of my life. Putting an infested Terran on a YouTube thumbnail for StarCraft 2 in 2026. Anyways, no infested Terrans in this particular matchup because of course this is a live version of the game, and last time I checked, nothing gets infested in Terran versus Protoss. Maybe if it's StarCraft 1, you know, you could have like a Dark Archon, I guess, mind controlling. Yeah, you could consider that an infestation. Yeah, could be. All right, it's going to be a quick cybercore right over here inside of the main base. Nothing all too weird, other than maybe the positioning here of these structures. Doesn't really matter all too much, but ByuN is very well known for his Reaper-based starts. Not the case, though, in this particular match. ByuN completely scoutless. Always really seen of the Protoss player so far is the worker that decided to go into his main base. It's a Marine into a reactor, so a pretty greedy start here for the South Korean Terran player, but one that you can generally get away with quite nicely. And because of this start, we now also have a quick sentry on the back of this here for Max. So Max did scout that it's not a very quick, like, triple Reaper build or anything super aggressive here. Stalker is going to keep him mostly safe anyways. If it would be, for example, a Marine into a Reaper, a little bit odd. But the sentry is really nice for just early game scouting. And it looks like we are going to be... For some reason, we're going to be building the Twilight console with the probe that was going into the assimilator. I guess you technically have a little bit of teleportation. It might actually be the most optimal way of doing it. He's now creating a little bit of a path blocker over here for any potential Hellions that might be driving by. Not going to happen, though. What we will have is an hallucinated Phoenix dodging the Marines successfully. MaxPax using that energy overcharge from the Nexus to give the sentry a little bit of additional juice, which he can now use to scout around the main base here of the Terran and figure out exactly what he's going up against. The only problem, of course, is that the sentry is not that formidable an attacking unit at this stage in the game, nor really at any stage in the game. Yeah, other than in maybe Protoss versus Protoss, but across the board, very useful to get that early game tell, and Max is apparently going to celebrate with a really fast third Nexus. This is technically a little bit risky, but when you can scout out exactly what the opponent is going for, right? In a normal game, this would be problematic, but in this instance, I don't really hate it. Super greedy start here, though, for MaxPax, because now he's taking a third base off of 2 Stalkers and a Sentry. And the Sentry has no energy. The main thing he needs to make sure he can intercept is a potential Widowmine drop. Obviously, he knows there's going to be quite a large number of Marines out, but ByuN doesn't really want to go across the map with those Marines, because he doesn't know whether or not it's going to be Blink, right? If it's a quick Blink Stalker opener, so there is Blink here, but it's not the fastest possible one. If it's a really quick Blink Stalker opener, all of those Marines are dead. So he decided to send them back home, just using them for base defense for now. And it does mean that we should be here A-okay as MaxPax. Very greedy start that I think is going to pay off quite nicely. Assuming he can also defend against this Widowmine drop. Let's see. Stalkers are here though. Should be an easy pickoff. At least one of them is going to go down. Keep in mind they do fire a little bit more quickly, but this was A-okay. Do have to bring the probes back to mining, but this is all fine. We have the other group of anti-air units set up. Absolute disaster here for ByuN. Perfect game so far here for MaxPax. I don't think you can really complain about how anything has been going so far. This is extremely annoying for Terran, right? Because even though, right, you have all of these units, even though your own economy is fine, your opponent has been greedy and you've been unable to stop it. Now you're going for this move out without Stimpack, without combat shields, without +1 attack. He's thinking about fighting, but I don't think he's going to do particularly well against Blink Stalkers. You kind of have to do something, though, because if you let Protoss just macro up here, Protoss is going to be able to outproduce you so quickly. For now, things are okay. There's a Raven as well, just being a little bit of a nuisance. Okay. Achieving more, actually, than the Widowmine drop did, and all of the other units so far. Gotta go into the +1 and ground attacks here as well. Charge will be done in just a moment. Ever since casting those patches games, I have been thinking about the charge upgrade quite a bit. So one of the things that in that custom StarCraft 2 balance mod was added is the ability to manually activate charge. Meaning that you can auto-cast it, right? So obviously that means that the Zealots will charge at the targets when they're gonna be within range. But you can also choose to put the ability on cooldown manually and just basically get a movement speed boost for Zealots. It seems like the absolute no-brainer implementation to add to StarCraft 2 today. Protoss does seem to be struggling a little bit. Yeah, maybe give a little bit more micro ability to a unit that basically gets no micro whatsoever. Just make the Zealots be able to manually cast charge and give them a bit of a speed boost whenever you want to. You can still also have them automatically charging at units. Just being able to also act the ability manually seems like a great addition to the game. Anyhow, a Robo facility here. Followed up with a Robo Bay. We'll probably go into Colossi. All of the units, really, that Max can go for at this point are going to be excellent. The main thing he needs to worry for is this big move out, right? So, ByuN hasn't really lost a lot of attacking units just yet. So, Stimpack, Combat Shields, +1 infantry, it's all relatively slow. By no means the fastest possible timing attack here for Terran, but it's still going to be a scary one. The main thing that's scary right now, though, for ByuN is the fact that there's charge slots out, and the first batch of them has made their way across the map. This is maybe even gonna trigger a retreat. Nah, not gonna be the case. We have some Zealots as well with the Prism inside of the main. In the meantime, though, here's the main attack of the Terran, and this needs to deal damage. The Zealots inside of the main base are annoying, but this army needs to justify itself. Siege Tank actually still lives. One of the Stalkers there did retarget. Zealots still going to town, though, slicing up whatever they can. Bare minimum, Terran needs to kill this third. Now, I don't really know if he's going to be able to achieve it. Likewise, though, yeah, the Colossus is going to make life way better. Likewise, this Terran army, yeah, is going to get shot at. Siege Tank will likely not survive the journey home. And while there is indeed a nice Widowmine setup, the blink was perfect. Both players end up losing 8 workers apiece. And I think we're going to see even more Terran units not make the trek home. Yeah, rough game here for ByuN. This is one of those games where things aren't going horribly wrong, but nothing's really going your way. The opponent has been greedy, you haven't been able to stop it, and while Max is still not really outgrowing here that rapidly, at the very least now we get finally a little bit of damage done here. Sniping the War Prism is good. This is just one of those situations where it feels relatively hopeless as the Terran. Max is going to test the waters, though. He needs to be careful that he doesn't overextend. No ranged upgrade yet for the Colossus. Third command center wants to be set up over here. A little bit risky. Viking count is currently at, I think, 4. Yeah, 4 Vikings at the moment. Orbital command got cancelled. Has to now go into the main base. No burrow available on Zealots. But if he could have, he would have certainly set underneath the ground right now to delay that CC a little bit more. Excellent dancing skills, though, here by the Danish Protoss thus far. Needs to be careful against the Vikings, but, I mean, the Colossi are already tearing a lot apart. Still, though, the Marauder count is big. Zealots once more going to town, killing a bunch of SCVs. We have a few of them as well over in the natural expansion. Some of them need to get pulled, apparently, some of the SCVs, that is, to try and keep the wall alive. Third orbital also will stay around. We do want to have one of the mules working away at repairing the orbital command, because otherwise you're in a world of trouble. Please repair it. Okay. Didn't want to use the mules there. Didn't want to waste any of their time. One thing that ByuN hasn't started up yet is +2. Okay, yeah, right as I say it, he does go for the double additional research right now in the engineering base. Very important to stay on top of that. Forge number 2 now coming up as well for Max. And right as Terran is securing the third base finally, we have a fourth Nexus finishing up on the other side of the map. Still though, ByuN is holding himself just fine. It is always a concern as a Terran here that you're just gonna be outgrown in the long run. But the current patch really does favor turtle Terrans quite a bit, right? And if that is the style ByuN needs to go for, he will be more than keen to do so. I think a few ghosts would be extremely useful. EMP on these clumped up units would be awesome. Anyways, here we go. We're gonna try and chase down with some of the zealots. 4 SCVs end up going down as we have some zealots breaking into the natural expansion yet again. Okay. Observer does get spotted. Easy snipe. Nice micro here, though, by MaxPax across the board in this entire game so far. No crazy overextensions. Now, I think that anti-armor missile is probably going to force Protoss to back up temporarily. This basically makes him take more damage from every single Terran attack. He's thinking about engaging this regardless, though. Ooh, and maybe, yeah. Maybe ByuN decided to chase this a little bit too far. That worked out way better for Protoss than I thought it would. Now with no more Vikings up in the air, the Colossi are just dominating the ground. The Marauders are technically not the best target for them to be roasting, but the Colossi will still get the job done. MaxPax makes the game look pretty easy here in map number 1 of this best of 3. All of that can be traced back to the greedy start of MaxPax. No scout from ByuN. Early probe scout from MaxPax confirmed that it was a Marine first. Because of it, he could go for a quick sentry. He then confirmed that it wasn't a very aggressive follow-up from Terran, so he ended up going for a really early third. And from there on out, all you need to do is micro pretty much perfectly. Just micro. Just make sure you blink your stalkers at the correct time. Make sure you position them underneath the Vikings and target fire down the Vikings so the Colossi stay alive. Yeah, it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle when you try to basically cover all your bases properly, right, as ByuN. So ByuN decided to go for the more, I guess we can call it tried and true strat. The type of build order you can't technically go wrong with, because it's good against all standard Protoss openers. Well, when the opponent is scouting exactly what you've got and then responds pretty greedily, you end up falling a little bit behind. Lockdown is game number 2. This is a very choky map. Especially the fights over here in this section of the map usually are quite significant. I've seen a lot of Marine tank pushes in this direction. Quite a difficult base to acquire. Likewise, of course, we could see the same as well on the other side of the map. With, for example, Colossi, but also Disruptors are not a bad choice here. A lot of good options available. But let's see what we can do for now. I wonder if he's going to go for another sentry build here. There was a time, like a year or so ago, where Sentry First builds were actually very popular. I think Sentry First is a little bit greedy. Maybe not entirely necessary either, but the early Sentry really does seem to give you just so much support. Stalker into Sentry is very formidable if used correctly. So we're doing basically the same thing again here as Terran, right? So he is scouting for proxies, but he is, again, going Marine into Reactor. No scout with an SCV whatsoever. The big difference here in the early game is that Max this time around is also not scouting with a probe. So neither player really scouting very much. In this case, though, you pretty much have to assume that there is going to be a Reaper on your side of the map. Yep. Stalker first. Sentry first just doesn't really deal with a Reaper very well. I would imagine since this is MaxPax playing that we are going to be seeing good old Blink yet again. MaxPax not necessarily the most creative player under the sun. He's just very good at, well, executing normal strats, and apparently that's what we're going to do again here, indeed. So it is Stalker into Sentry. Stalker will be waiting in a location where it could also pop into the main base and defend against a Reaper that might be jumping up. Second gateway is going to be set up over here, and Twilight Council with the next gas. Is that the plan? Yep. Not using the assimilator as a way to do a little bit of a teleport there. All right, so Phoenix is going to be flying across the map yet again. It is critical that you dodge the very first group of Marines. That's what ByuN is looking out for right now. He knows that this is likely what we will have in this game. He was a couple seconds off, though. Free scout. So, what do you see here? It's a little bit different, right, than the previous game. So, this is a triple Rex build here for ByuN. 2cc triple barracks. Now that the command centers are a little bit cheaper, you can add on these additional production structures a little bit easier, too. So, this time around, we're going to get a much quicker Stimpack, a much quicker combat shields as well. And I think it would be pretty much GG if we were to see MaxPax now plant down a third Nexus. You just can't afford it, so what's the deviation instead? It looks like we're branching off into a robo facility here together with double assimilator. Probably meaning he wants to go into Colossi here much sooner. 2-base Colossi versus 2-base triple barracks, although ByuN wants to apparently now be greedy because he knows that this is likely going to be the response. He is now the one who's actually being greedy by adding on a much faster third base. So this is one of those cheeky little mind games. ByuN not scouting the opponent, knows that he is the one who's gonna get scouted, and is now effectively playing the mental game here with his opponent where he knows that this is a very risky play against most Protoss builds, but since he's very likely going to be forcing out an early Colossus transition, he should be able to get away with a greedy third himself. Keep in mind though that ByuN has still not seen the other side of the map. So this is one of those mind games that is going to work out brilliantly, it seems, in this particular game, but you have to be very careful executing this on the ladder, because if your opponent is not as big-brained as MaxPax, if he does not give you the respect, you could just lose the game. Yeah, you could just straight up lose the game. So there's the Robo Bay, and I would imagine we are going to be adding on a third Nexus right about right now. The momentum, though, is different in this match. MaxPax actually should be scouting. Yeah, he loses the Observer. Or not the Observer, the hallucinated Phoenix. Observer is right over here. He should be checking out for potential third bases, although obviously it could be inside of the main base as well. Building it on location is probably the least likely thing. So now we have effectively the same builds as we did in the previous games, right? Except ByuN has got a much faster third base than the opponent. So the dynamic here, as we did have some shots going down apparently, the dynamic here is now a little bit different. Action is now on MaxPax. Even though he doesn't really know exactly what he's playing against, he also hasn't seen this Terran army knocking at his natural expansion. So he's being a bit cautious. But I think he's probably realized now that the only way why ByuN would be playing like this is if there is indeed a third base out somewhere. So now you got to be careful though as Protoss, very similar to the previous game, right? Except it's the other way around. Now you got to be careful here as Protoss, the Terran is not going to be outgrowing you. It is going to be charge. It is going to be ranged Colossi. Extend the thermal lens. +1 ground weapons as well coming up though for ByuN. That's going to be for the infantry. And now that we finally have some medevacs out, the boys are going to get a nice little touch up. Yeah. Some new windshield wiper fluid. Some additional tire pressure. That sort of thing. At least I think that's how marine suits work. I don't know. One Stalker masquerading as a Zealot, putting in a bit of work. The other group of Stalkers though blinking away. Do you think you have to take your marine suit into a car wash? Do you think there's a marine suit wash? I feel like you have to, no? Like, these guys are probably sleeping in their marine suits. It smells horrible in there. Maybe that's why they have visors. Maybe that's the reason why. I feel like that's the main bottleneck, like the main plot gap. What do you call that? There's a plot problem in the Wings of Liberty campaign where you could have really smelt Tigers coming in from a mile away. He never took that off. Anyways, is there enough for ByuN to just break through this? Straight up? Plot hole, that's the word I'm thinking of. Yeah, I think he might just. The Colossi have no more support. MaxPax was thinking about going into a 4th Nexus. But this is the Terran army just absolutely destroying everything. And while there are some Stalkers working away at the 3rd base, this Terran army needs to be stopped. And I don't really see how that's going to happen. Robo facility itself is actually just going to get targeted down. And Colossus 3 does not spawn. 8 SCVs did die. More of them will be following. Maybe this is actually going to keep MaxPax in the game, though. Normally, we use Zealots for the counterattack, but maybe now with reinforcing Protoss units, sniping a lot of these units here, maybe life's going to be fine. Huh. 23 SCVs died to a small Stalker hit squad. Oh, this game has just been flipped upside down. I still like this spot way better for ByuN just across the board. But ByuN already thought that this game was over. He did not really respect the Stalkers at his 3rd base very much. Could have just, well, tried to save the CC or honestly even give up on the command center. Losing 24 SCVs is a bit much. But now suddenly, the double robo follow-up here from MaxPax is kind of crazy. We have some Stalkers. Ooh, intercepting the Medevacs. Sadly, right there from Max, he did not quite get the full HP Medevac. Would have been nice to get 10 supply down the drain, but still, getting one of them is pretty sweet. ByuN, though, not slacking here with the transition towards Ghosts. He did decide to go for a faster Ghost Academy, but you know what? When behind, Dark Shrine is still a pretty good rule to follow. He's also simultaneously now going into that double Colossus transition, right? So, MaxPax not opting to go for a very fast 4th Nexus. He does have one coming right now. Normally, you take the location where he previously tried to acquire it, but not the case. A couple Zealots are going to get intercepted here in the bottom right-hand corner. Fair enough. The top left base is far more difficult for MaxPax to secure, technically, but because it's so much more exposed, it's also less likely that ByuN is going to be checking for it. Scan here reveals indeed that that's not the case. Do you just assume that the base is then taken over here? He knows there has to be a 4th out there somewhere, right? But then again, you also wonder, how much did I actually kill? Because you're dealing with the Stalkers in your 3rd. Okay, now he sees it for sure. Medevac did end up going down, though. Is there enough? Terran actually, ooh, maybe caught off guard. Ooh, caught off guard here. Not quite enough sentries available to constantly be force-fielding any of this, but that was still pretty sweet. Only 3 probes ended up falling. The Zealots trying their best yet again to be a nuisance on the right side of the map. 4th command center indeed coming up right now for ByuN. Yeah, ByuN is just playing this safely now. We have 2 starports out, so 4 Vikings can be produced simultaneously. Dark Templar are going to be part of the game as well in just a moment. There we go. They're just being warped in apparently in the natural. We do have a Zealot as well over on the right side of the map. Keep in mind that on the new patch you can get fast warp-ins from any warp-in location. We did make double Robo, but then not really a lot of units out of the Robo facility. 5th Nexus now coming up as well. This is turning out to be a beautiful game so far, though, because it's a difficult one here to predict for both of the players. One of the reasons that MaxPax is being aggressive here is to keep the Terran player honest, right? You want to see how much the opponent has. And again, he's putting in so much work. So many SCVs are dying to the Dark Templar. This main body of the Protoss army is really nice. Yeah, MaxPax is so good. 26 workers gone, just like that. Is there enough Terran to break through this, or did MaxPax just turn this game upside down? Yeah, and I think this is ultimately just a little bit too much Terran. Ooh. It's like MaxPax did all the hard work and then forgot doing the easy part. The easy part was not losing the Robo facility units. Honestly, if he would have just gone home with the main body of his army, did a couple rounds of warp-ins, I think this army would be held pretty easily. Now you've killed a ridiculous amount of workers, 54 of them, and ByuN is on the counterattack. I don't know if ByuN is realizing it, but this push is extremely important for him. If he doesn't deal with, well, at least like 2 bases worth, I want to say, Protoss is going to outgrow him. Another Colossus is falling. The Zealots are not coming out in large enough groups. We do have 10 gateways into warp gates now, but that's at least 1 base gone. More SCVs, by the way, did die as well. Only 48 workers now remain on 3 bases. Not enough medevacs to keep this Terran army healthy, but that's 1 base down the drain. And I think that this Nexus in the upper left is next, although we will see a recall towards this army. Okay, let's see. Probes pulled as well from their mineral line. A lot of low HP Terran units, but the medevac have been accumulating a little bit of energy yet again. Landed Vikings are going to be extremely good as well. And that will be the end of base number 2 for this particular attack. Brilliant stuff. Overextension though from MaxPax. He made this game very difficult, but I can't blame him, right? Like, he did all the hard work and then, yeah, accidentally slipped up on the easier part. Obviously, though, we can see exactly the amount of economy that the players have, how big the bank is, how many bases are taken, for how long. But the players are making educated guesstimations. A little bit more difficult to pull off. Now, I think that this Dark Templar is going to get blasted. Okay. We'll run away. New Nexus coming up at the very bottom of the map. But the problem is that the army right now for Terran is absolutely massive. There's again a couple Colossi, but they don't really have much of a support. Not a single Stalker nearby. And because of it, GG gets cold. We're going to game number 3. And that will take us to At Eternity's Edge. Now, I had some pretty good feedback on one of my previous videos. I suggested that we take away the word at and just refer to this map as Eternity's Edge. And then I mentioned maybe we should add a verb to it instead, like the beautiful map Missing You Today. And I think, yeah, the clear favorite in the comment section was Dancing at Eternity's Edge. How about that, huh? We add an extra word to the title rather than take one away. The main problem, of course, being map introductions. Because imagine I'm in the video, right? Like, I'm casting right now. Hypothetically speaking, imagine if I'm casting a game of StarCraft right now, right? I know it's a bit of a stretch, but I think you can do it. What if I introduce this map as, hello everybody, welcome back to another game. We find ourselves at Eternity's Edge. That works, right? But we are now on the map at the, I don't know, you run into problems. You run into issues on this map, and I think Eternity's Edge or Dancing at Eternity's Edge probably makes more sense. But I'm taking suggestions for other verbs. What would be the best way? What can you do at Eternity's Edge that you can't do anywhere else? You can take a gold base. It's shared in the bottom left-hand corner. CC first, by the way, here from ByuN. Command Center first. Somewhat hidden in the corner of the main. MaxPax is going to scout it. If you were at Eternity's Edge in real life, right, what would you do? I would imagine Eternity's Edge is a synonym to at the verge of death. What would you be doing? Maybe not. Who made this map, by the way? At Eternity's Edge. Liquipedia. Depressed One. Oh no! It's the map maker, Depressed One. I take it back. I take it back. I'm not going to make fun of the map name anymore. He did make a bunch of maps. There was actually a map that he made for a TLMC a few seasons ago that I thought was absolutely brilliant. That one never made it to the map pool. Wait, is this his very first official ladder map? I think it might just be. Pretty funky, because he's been... Yeah, he had a lot of maps that made it to the TLMC finalists over the years. At least 6 or 7, I want to say. The only problem is this square right over here on Eternity's Edge. It's not your graphics card dying. For some reason, that section of the map is a little bit buggy. I don't know why. Only happens in replays, though. Yeah, his username is depressed1. I don't know. All right, proxy pylon here for MaxPax. So, CC first into a triple Rex. Factory right now on the back of this. Nexus on the low ground for Max, who's going to add on a second gateway. And I would imagine a Twilight Council in a moment. Or we could add on a proxy Stargate. He's already guarding his opponent's natural. I guess you can turn the word edge into a verb as well. Anyways, maybe that's what you originally wanted for the map, but sadly, not allowed. I'm assuming we're going to be seeing Stimpack and Combat Shields fired up in just a moment. Likewise, the Orbital Command is ready to go, so we're going to send it down to the low ground. Stalkers being a little bit annoying, shooting out of their giant foreheads. I think if I was a Stalker unit, or if I was a StarCraft unit, I would probably be a Stalker. Adept trying to scout a little bit inside of the main base. There is a Cyclone available, so the Cyclone is nice. But, yeah, exactly. You need to be careful here as Protoss that you don't overextend. MaxPax's main goal, though, with this attack is just to slow down, right? Just slow this Protoss or this Terran player down. Try to make sure he can't secure that low ground expo all too early on. Orbital Command was used to land a single mule on the low ground, so that's nice. But it's important to keep this mining going. Nice target firing right there by ByuN. Does not quite get an additional Stalker, but I think across the board, this is not too bad. Losing this Cyclone does kind of suck. It means that you can't continue fishing. Starport, though, is going to be available momentarily. The good old pylon. Yeah, being able to warp in from the pylon early on is pretty sweet. Third Nexus in the meantime here on the other side. And I'm assuming we will indeed be going into the charge research after the blink. So now we have that weird setup for Protoss, right? Where you have some of your gateways, yeah, turn into warp gates, and then the others not so much. It makes sense that you kind of want to equalize it. Make sure that you can just continue warping in. Not a whole lot you can do, though, at the moment with those Stalkers. Not until Blink is done and you have high ground vision. Easiest way to get high ground vision right now would be probably with an Observer. Still, you want to be a little bit cautious. Having vision of like a potential drop is very important. It's difficult to pull off, but not impossible. A Banshee follow-up. Also, not out of the ordinary. Observer number 2, though. Yep, is indeed available for base defense. MaxPax blinks into the main. Immediately realizes his mistake. Has to recall, loses 2 Stalkers. But he did a recall towards the third base, right? So, at the very least, you know that you've got yourself a pretty nice economy. The main goal usually is sniping the tech labs with the green lights on. Denying combat shields would be absolutely massive. Seeing though that the Terran already has Stimpack as well makes it pretty clear that it's probably better that you don't. Okay. Concussive shells not yet available. It's going to finish up right after this little skirmish. If that upgrade would have been done, he probably could have had like an additional 2 Stalker kills or so. Makes a pretty big difference. ByuN is thinking about sending it forward, but you're always at the mercy of those zealots as well. He doesn't really know exactly when charge is going to be finished. There could also be a Colossus follow-up. You have to be prepared for pretty much everything. Now he's going to see how fast those zealots are moving, so it makes it pretty apparent of what is going on. There's only 1 siege tank, though. Only 1 single tank. The tank for drawing out some shots can be really nice. This is not a terrible engagement here for Terran, I don't think. No. In the meantime, we have a bunch of zealots again being annoying. This is really something that MaxPax does in almost every single game that we see him play. There's always little groups of zealots going in, and they make such a big difference. That's 7 SCVs going down. He appears to be holding as well at home. Yeah. I mean, this tug of war, right? It's dangerous. But now suddenly you do find yourself with a pretty significant worker advantage. Third command center comes up. Barracks 4 and 5 are going to be added into the mix. And while I'm sure that MaxPax would like to go into Colossi here eventually, it's not really top priority just yet. As a matter of fact, we're adding on a 4th Immortal right now. Oh. Sentry there getting hit by the Widow Mine. Stalkers do blink backwards. But yeah, a 4th Nexus coming up as well. Excellent movement here by MaxPax. Yeah, MaxPax really has just mastered the most basic units that Protoss has access to. And it sounds so obvious, because you play, well, I guess 100% of your games, you play with Zealots and Stalkers. But they're extremely good when you micro them well. They feel different, though, compared to, like, a Roach or, for example, a Marauder and a Marine, right? Like, you have to keep these units alive. They're very pricey, relatively speaking. ByuN really wants to get the snipe. I think the command center, though, or the siege tank here, not going to be able to achieve too much more. And now with this entire Protoss army positioned over here. Oh, is he going to get it? Oh, he cancels it. Wait a second. Mispositioning on Protoss army. ByuN already backing off because he thought he wasn't going to get it. And then MaxPax deciding to pull the trigger himself and canceling it. Mistake right there from the Danish Protoss. I think he was fine. It's the first time, by the way, I've ever called a siege tank command center. There you go. First time for everything, I guess. I've called many of these units Immortals. And likewise, many of these units Marauders. But never a siege tank a command center. Huh. Although I guess they cost about the same these days. Maybe that's where the confusion is coming from. Ooh. Not that many Zealots available here. Yeah, ByuN decided to just stand his ground. A little bit risky. But there aren't that many Zealots available. The real bait right now is the amount of Immortals here. Marauders get absolutely torn to pieces by those Immortals. They deal bonus damage against armored. So these become quite difficult fights to really estimate, right, as a Terran. The default is to stutter step backwards, but sometimes, especially when you have a very Marauder-heavy army against a very Colossus-heavy army, it's better to just stand your ground and really, yeah, optimize the amount of firing time that you have when you're bio units. The Immortal count from earlier, though, really does make that a little bit more difficult. Widow Mine is going to get blasted. Yet again, while this is going on, we have a little group of Zealots being incredibly obnoxious. Look at the SCV count drop. What in the world just happened, man? It's like MaxPax turns it on and then suddenly everything dies. 28 SCVs down the drain. The Colossus will fall. That's one of the two. Immortals are also in a little bit of trouble, but I mean, they're, yeah, plowing through the Marauders in the meantime. There's more Zealots available, and they're going to be pulled as well now to the front line, to the main army. And while ByuN was making the, yeah, transition here towards Ghosts, 40 SCVs is just way too many to lose. We have a 5th Nexus building all the way up north. In case you were wondering, does MaxPax still have what it takes to play StarCraft 2 at a high level? We haven't seen him too much lately. I think it's fair to say the man still has what it takes. 62 Zealots have also died this game, though. Yeah, the ratio of Zealots to SCVs, not that bad for ByuN. But the problem now for ByuN is that the armies were also, for the most part, traded out. So you don't really have much of an army to be counterattacking with anymore. Do you want to make additional Vikings here when you've just taken care of your opponent's last Colossus? Not really, but then if you go across the map and you see that your opponent has a Colossus out, you need to go back home again. So you kind of end up in a situation where you're better off just backing up and securing your own 4th base. ByuN actually choosing to not go for a planetary, but into a 4th orbital. A 4-orbital command. Bunch of proxy pylons here on the left side. ByuN has actually never bothered sending a little hit squad out to try and snipe those units. If he would have known that the pylons were out there, I think it would be a big deal for him to just... Yeah, he must realize, right? Because the stalkers were there early enough. Where the only way in which they could have gone across was through the pylon charge. And I think this is enough right now, though, for MaxPax. Yep. He's pulling the trigger. He's roasting whatever unit he can hit. And while maybe the final Colossus in this game will end up going down, GG is indeed gonna get called. MaxPax gets the job done. More StarCraft? Yeah, let's do a little bit more StarCraft. So, that previous series, and this one as well, was from the Wardy Monday, played last Monday. Spotting right here in the bottom left. Playing with the blue Protoss pieces. We're looking inside of the main base of MaxPax. His next opponent on the bracket. Another Terran. We have Kjær. We're once more on lockdown. Does that mean we open up in the exact same way as well? It will be very unlikely that Kjær actually talked to ByuN in between the games. That Kjær actually watched MaxPax play. Can you just do the exact same build multiple times in a row? So last time around he ended up going for the Stalker into Sentry Opener. And then a really greedy 3rd Nexus. I don't think it would be a terrible idea, but obviously it depends on what you see from the opponent. Kjær has been impressing me a lot lately. Kjær actually, by far, I would say, at the highest level, the most underrated Terran. Kjær has been consistently a top 10 player for like the last 5 years. And nobody ever talks about him. That sounds rude. I think this is what they call the Dutch directness, right? I've been working on that, okay? Sometimes I sound like a prick when I don't mean to. I think this is... But it's true. Nobody ever talks about Kjær, man. And this guy has been consistently one of the top dogs for such a long time. Consistently performing well in tournaments. Nobody ever really says that Kjær is their favorite player. Yeah, this is one of the most common questions that gets discussed at StarCraft 2 events. I always like asking people that come up to me what their favorite player is or who they're cheering for. I don't think anybody has ever said Kjær. He's consistently top 8 in tournaments, but he's just, I guess, so standard. But then, when you think about it, right, MaxPax, likewise, also extremely standard. Cyril, I mean, he created the standard, right? Like, it's very interesting. I guess only if you are, like, if you're a standard player, the only player that really is the most interesting to watch is the one at the absolute top position. I don't know if Kjær really cares about this sort of thing, but Kjær really is an absolute monster. And he's been looking really good as well in the new patch. A lot of people, for example, are big fans of Maru. A lot of people are big fans of Clem. That's a name I hear all the time. ByuN, obviously, also somebody that comes up a lot. Kjær? Not so much. Oliveira as well, actually. Back when Oliveira was competing, Oliveira is, one of the players that people always mentioned. That must be because of that legendary IEM Katowice run that he had a few years ago. These days, Oliveira no longer playing the game full-time. He did participate in some events. Earlier this year, there was like an All-Stars invitation event over in China. Now, Oliveira being far and away the most successful Chinese player that we've ever had in StarCraft 2. He was also, of course, invited to that tournament. And he did play in that. And he still had what it takes. I know he's actually very highly ranked on the ladder. Literally right now. So Oliveira is playing. I don't know if he's just playing casually or what he's doing day to day. Right? I don't know. I don't really know. But he still certainly has what it takes. But also, likewise, a very popular player. As far as Protoss goes, what do you think is the most commonly heard name? When you think of popular Protoss players that people cheer for. Actually, well, obviously it's Hero, right? Like Hero, far and away the most popular player. I also hear a lot of people that really like to cheer for names like, for example, Showtime and Hearthstone. Also, of course, very popular in their own rights. Likewise, MaxPax is also real popular, but he doesn't play in offline events. So only ever online. A little bit different. But I guess as far as Protoss goes, right, you have players like, for example, Zaun. Consistently one of the very best for a really long time now. Players like Classic, never really mentioned. Yeah, they get the cure treatment, I suppose. All right, let's see. We have a weird little hit squad here. This was, by the way, an identical build here for Max. So the same strategy that he went for against ByuN. But look at this weird little hit squad that Kira has just shown up with. It's a different build order here across the board for the South Korean Terran. You know what? I already like this better than what ByuN was going for. He's really threatening the potential cancel on this base. Oh, Guardian Shield gets activated, but I don't know about this, man. I don't think there's enough Protoss, is there? Blink is far from done. It's not going to be finished for this engagement. This Nexus may actually be toast. But if you cancel right now, I think you may as well lose the game. Yeah. So instead, MaxPax is sending bodies to the problem. How many bodies, though, is a Nexus worth? Cure realizing now that he's unlikely to get the kill on this base. So he's really just fishing for as many potential Stalker kills as he can get. Of course, he knows that cleaning out the Stalker count at this point is going to make any sort of follow-up from Protoss way easier to deal with. So that's a Sentry, and then 4 Stalkers going down for 5 Marines and a Cyclone. That is a trait that Terran players will take any day of the week. So this is different than what ByuN was doing, right? This is Cure now punishing the opponent for this greedy build. And it makes this a far more comfortable spot for Terran. Now, I wouldn't say that this is going to be easy, but at the very least, we have some more potential aggressive follow-ups. Stimpack coming in. It's going to be a long while until it's done, but it looks like Cure is already sending in reinforcements to clear out the lads in that medevac. Gotta save him. A couple Stalkers here, misrallied, but Blink at this point is done. Raven going in around the back. We do not have charge queued up, by the way, in this game for MaxPax. He's been, I guess, under a lot of pressure. Wanting to use up some of the gas here to warp in better units. It does mean, though, that any sort of siege tank attack is going to be far harder to hold. And this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, Cure consistently. And this is a quite actually... Ooh, those siege tanks! Dang. Nice scan as well to secure the kill on the Sentry. Yeah, Cure consistently one of the absolute top dogs. Where ByuN was struggling, Cure is dismantling thus far. Now, of course, this is by no means game over. This is still 3 base Protoss versus 2 base Terran. Third command center is nearly done, but not quite enough really just yet. Stimpack, combat shields, +1 infantry attacks coming up for Cure. Those upgrades are going to be nearly done. We did, of course, lose quite a few units in the process, though. So do you really want to still commit to an attack? Well, I guess you've killed 2 sentries. There's some more reinforcing Marines, Marauders, Widow Mines, and all the rest of it showing up. May as well. So we're still going to go ahead and hit the Stimpack combat shield timing attack. Third command center. Send it over towards the triangle position. And obviously this base is still bruised from earlier. Can Cure finish the job that he started? Stim is going to get activated. Really just here, though, to get the Widow Mines and the Siege Tanks in position. And you know what? He got exactly what he wanted. Immortals not long for this world. I think Cure just destroyed MaxPax here. Yeah, this Nexus is gone. GG gets cold. Cure just dismantled him. Okay. Sanctuary 3. Game number 2 between these 2 legends. I've decided to fast forward to minute 2. Because I think we have studied the early game of TVP quite well. I think we all have a pretty good understanding on how the first few structures usually get placed down. Marines here into a reactor. This is the same build that ByuN was going for, actually. They did also play on Sanctuary 3. Factory right now on the back of this, and Twilight Council is probably gonna get planted down right about over here in a moment. Are we gonna go sentry again on the back of this as well, Max? We've got the double gas taken. Looks like it. Yep, exactly 100 Vespine right when the Stalker finished up with the Chrono Boost. So just about perfect there for the Danish Protoss. I hope there's some big Cure fans out there. I'm a fan of Cure, man. I think Cure is one of the most underrated players out there. He really is the people's Terran. Like, you look at Cure's playstyle and you think, I could do that. Like, hold my beer. I can take over and play like that. And then you give it a shot, and it turns out you can't. But still, Cure is definitely somebody that you need to be respecting as any opponent, really, but also as a viewer, because this guy is a beast. He's actually been playing in a lot of weekly cups lately, which is pretty sweet. I think lately he's mostly been making a name, at least under a lot of the viewers of my content. He's been making a name for himself as the command center guy. In Terran versus Zerg, nobody is loving command centers more right now than Cure. Not even ByuN. ByuN loves command centers a lot. But I think Cure is really... he's in love with them, you know? There's a difference between loving and being in love. Cure adores command centers. Not so much, though, against Protoss. Maybe if you can get there. Who knows? It does mean that this early game shenanigans does not quite work out. Twilight Council, by the way, in the exact position here for Max. Robo facility as well. Not a whole lot you can do with this particular army now as Terran, right? It's a similar hit squad as in the previous game, but the Hallucinated Phoenix has indeed confirmed that there is nothing that you can really do here as well. You can't really go down to the low ground here and take a third base as Protoss. Not a good idea. Does he have enough to just break this through right now? Wait a second. Medevac is expensive, but he does not quite get the kill. Probes are actually taking a bit of a beating. Medevac does end up going down. Cyclone falls as well. Marines just gunning whatever they can. Hold up right now, man. Cure is going beast mode. This is 2-base Protoss. Generally speaking, 2-base Protoss does not struggle against this type of build. This is, I think, a symptom of the new patch still. He does end up with slightly different unit counts at this stage in the game, and that's a lot, man. It's a lot of Protoss units here ending up going down. I don't think you can really do much. Maybe if you have an observer out and you can then blink into the main base, right? Maybe you can try and slow down the Stimpec research, but yeah, I think a third Nexus here into Robo Bay makes a lot of sense too. You never know if there's going to be another drop or like a Raven or something along those lines following up that attack just now. If there's a Widowmine drop or a Raven and you don't have any units at home because you're trying to attack on the other side of the map with your Blink Stalkers, yeah, you just end up in a world of trouble too, so... Not really enough Stalkers either to really go for a proper counterattack. 5 Stalkers in the main base? I don't know. Alright, there is indeed a Raven. Cure flipped up a coin and, lucky for him, ended up, yep, on the right side. And also, close to the refinery here, or the assimilator, where the 2 low HP probes were. So he gets 2 probes as well. If the Stalkers were positioned over here, or if any of the other workers were inside of that assimilator instead, all of this would have been a lot better for Max. Unlucky draw. And there's Stimpec. There's combat shields. There's +1 infantry attacks. Third command center coming up as well. It's always good, though, for Terran in this matchup when the command center, the third one, is at least somewhat close to the timing of the third base of Protoss. That's when you know life is pretty sweet as the Terran. Obviously easier to do now that the command centers are a little bit cheaper. Next line of attack will be with Stimpec, combat shields, and +1 infantry attacks, and that's exactly what Cure is moving out for right now. Not super committed of a push though, and you have to be a bit careful. He's leaving a bunch of troops behind. Could load them into the medevac and try to reinforce his main army. But yeah, attacking with only like 80% of your units against a Protoss player who very likely has most of their units balled together, or at least close to one another. You gotta be realistic about those things. It's probably not gonna go well. So instead, we're now using the upgrade boost mostly just to secure the third base. Colossi now coming out. Ranged is going to be available for them as well in a moment. And then the Templar Archives too. First Templar Archives actually in all these TVPs that I've been casting so far today. We haven't seen a single Templar Archives, have we? We've had more Dark Shrines than Templar Archives. So the new patch did nerf Storm a little bit. Storm now deals 10 less damage than it did comparatively over time. It is one of the more questionable changes that they've made to the game. I really don't think it was necessary. Right now, the Templar Archive is really not meant for Storm very much. Okay, we are going to be bringing it in, but a lot of people like to get it mostly just for a bunch of, well, Archons and that sort of thing, right? Maybe feedback even can be really nice. Yeah, Storm is not quite the same as it used to be. So if you compare to Storm where it used to be, right, it was like a much shorter duration, so the damage per second was far higher. Right now the damage per second, like technically it deals more damage than it dealt back then, but only if the entirety of the Terran army is dancing in the storms. Which at this level, shouldn't happen. I highly doubt we're gonna see Kira dancing in the storm. But maybe. Maybe he likes dancing in the rain. Who knows? Okay, a bit of a slower game, though. 4th command center now coming up. Yeah, both players really aiming more for a macro match now. The early game not really giving any player a significant lead. Or at least not one that they really want to be pushing for. It looks like both players have effectively now decided to just play the macro game. So, 4th Nexus is going to be done. 4th command center likewise will be done as well in just a moment. Ghosts, of course, very, very good. Another reason why maybe the High Templar are a little bit difficult to play these days. Ghost also very good against, for example, charge slots. So you kind of want to have the Ghost regardless. Even though we don't have a lot of charge slots yet in this particular game. This is MaxPax we're talking about. So there's gonna likely be a bunch of them on the flanks here in just a moment. He was already attempting to maybe do something along those lines. We'll probably have a proxy pylon or two as well set up around the map. Cure now fully maxed. And that's apparently his trigger to go for a bit of a move out. Barracks 6, 7, and 8 coming up. +1 air weapons. I wouldn't mind having a second engineering bay. Oh, he does have a second engineering bay. You're using it for right now. I guess he fires it up right as I talk about it. Okay, very important, because you don't want to really forget about those upgrades. Raven from the early game still around. Siege tank trying its... Or siege tank. Colossus getting blasted here by the siege tank. New Nexus in the far bottom right. Likewise as well, all the way one in the upper left. These bases are far apart. MaxPax could lose one of them and be fine. Bit of a zoning storm there. Trying to slow down the advancement here of the Terran army. Fusion core coming up. Personal cloaking as well for the ghosts. Colossi thinking about coming in from the back, but keep in mind there's really not that many charge slots here. 3 additional command centers coming in. Well, I mentioned earlier that MaxPax generally doesn't have to deal with a ton of command centers. But apparently Cure is indeed loving the CCs as well in this matchup. Yeah, there's no charge slots. So if you have no charge slots, going in around the back is pretty much useless. 22 probes die for pretty much free. MaxPax's army decides to just simply take the long route back home. MaxPax effectively just gave up on 2 Nexi and then 20 plus workers for nothing. And I think this is, again, a symptom of the new patch. These are situations that you have seen many times in the past, but they all work out slightly differently now. I agree the right choice there for MaxPax was to back up. But now we have lost 2 bases, so we probably should have not been in that position the first time around. Technical nuke on the production tab here as well for the Terran. Caduceus reactor coming up. Liberator ranged will be added into the mix. Second starport is done. We're making a ring of missile turrets. Cure is cruising right now. Storm is available here, though. And we do have some zealots thinking about charging in. Not a great idea with this many siege tanks sieged up. Vikings still putting in the work. Okay. I like how I said like 10 minutes ago that Cure wasn't a big fan of mass command centers in this matchup. I take it back, Cure. It's like he hurt me. I take it back, Cure. It was a joke, dude. I wasn't serious about it, I promise. Everybody knows you love command centers, okay? Don't worry about it. He's making more command centers. Oh, man. Is there such a thing as too many command centers in this matchup? Well, you gotta have minerals available to remax. I guess as long as you have like 1,000 resources in the bank, though. More command centers is better than less command centers, although you gotta make sure you can hold these pushes. Liberator count right now is gonna be growing pretty rapidly. Normally in this matchup, it's the Protoss player who has mass base up, right? And that's one of the big problems you run into as a Terran player. It can be very difficult to stop a Protoss once the floodgates, as far as expansions, have been opened. And Cure just killing 2 bases of the opponent like that was absolutely critical. And it's now opened the door, yeah, for him to switch on over to a little bit of turtling. So, mass command center, mass liberator, ghost. New command center. That's gonna test the waters. Do we go for a Skytools transition now, MaxPax? Is that what we want to go for? Feels a little bit late. Ooh. New Nexus coming up. No cancel. There was already a Terran hit squad hiding behind the rocks. Yeah, we are trying to make a Skytools transition. So he wants to probably go into Tempest here. The problem is that Tempest are countered as well by Vikings. So Vikings have already been forced out because of the Colossi. As a matter of fact, they even have the +2 attack upgrade because he wants to go Liberators. And obviously the Vikings are still going to benefit against Colossi with that upgrade too. So now we're going to see air upgrades coming in for Max. He's economically behind. He's tech-wise also behind. And while maybe in the long run this is a great strat, it's a win condition that's like 20 minutes away. I've got a feeling it's going to be difficult for MaxPax to survive that long, although he's trying his best. Storm onto the siege tanks here. We have some zealots together with some Archons going in around the site. Looks like there are going to be some more zealots needed here at home. Tactical nuke in the meantime being used to apparently blast some of the static defense apart. Base over here in a little bit of trouble. Tactical nuke, though, as a distraction is also extremely nice. Oh, you know what? Ha! He got more than he bargained for. Tempest indeed coming in. Cancelled, replaced with carriers. Of course, the notification that we get on the minimap, right, as to where the nuke gets placed, the players do not get. So all MaxPax gets to look for is a tiny red dot anywhere on the map. He cancelled the carriers, by the way, and replaced them again with Tempest. So a little bit of indecisiveness here on the side of the Protoss. Just across the board, actually. I feel like MaxPax here is a little bit more indecisive, just in general. He is going for Mama. We are getting a Tempest upgrade as well that makes them better against structures, but Cure is oozing confidence right now. He's got 6 orbital commands already available, 3 more command centers added into the mix. His army is brilliant. Still a lot of resources available too to make a transition towards, well, quite literally anything he would like after this force hypothetically falls. Couple of the Tempest here overextended. Yikes. Complete misrally. Maybe some of these Terran units danced in the storm for a little bit too long, but that's now opening up more supply for more fresh units. Yeah, the medevac count is a little bit low. I wouldn't mind seeing an additional 4 medevacs or so added into the mix. But that's, again, this base going down. And then also the expansion over here on the right side, a little bit further south, likewise falling. It's the second time around that both of those bases die quickly after one another. Another tactical nuke is coming in. But Cure is getting things like building armor. Building armor is not something you could get if you know, are strapped for resources, right? Like if you need to save yourself some money, that's like the first upgrade to go. Here we go, though. Liberation is at hand. Cure is ready to provide a little bit of freedom. Now, Tempests are going to be awesome, but tactical nukes, as well as Liberators for zoning, making it very difficult for MaxPax to keep his bases alive. May as well land the nuke now. Just some fireworks, you know? Happy New Year, everybody. Oh. The Ghost apparently decided to walk within the radiation field itself. Cure just absolutely demolished MaxPax. It's interesting, right? So we see that series that MaxPax played against ByuN. MaxPax just seemed one step too far for ByuN across the board. Maybe not quite as clean as we are used to. I think that's just because the patch is still reasonably new and maybe he's not been able to play quite as much lately. But then Cure steps in and just destroys MaxPax. GG.